Hey, thanks for joining me for the first episode of my vlog series, Kelowna People and Places. This is Crystal Ratzlaff, and I'm a realtor at Coldwell Banker Horizon Realty. Today I have some information on the Upper Mission neighborhood and also have a great interview with Maria Correia and Peter Morgan. Stay tuned till the end for Crystal's favorite places. So about Maria and Peter. Maria grew up in Oliver, attended post-secondary school in Vancouver in Europe, and eventually wound up in a career in international development. Peter grew up in Toronto, attended graduate school at the University of Toronto and Harvard, where he focused on development issues. For the past 22 years, they have lived in Washington, D.C., where Maria was a manager with the World Bank and Peter was a consultant. Between the two of them, they have lived in 7 different countries and traveled to 109 countries. Last summer they moved to Kelowna, and honestly, they could have chosen to live anywhere in the world, but they chose Kelowna. They were drawn here by family, but there's so much more to their story.
In talking about where we wanted to retire, where we wanted to spend the next stage of our life, we settled on, first of all, Canada and then British Columbia, and we thought about 3 places, Vancouver, Victoria, and Kelowna. And thinking through all the different advantages and disadvantages of living in the different parts of British Columbia, and we settled on Kelowna.
You know, we've lived in many parts of the world, but I think as we got older and we contemplated retirement, we wanted to come home to Canada. You know, we wouldn't want to portray our search for Kelowna as a kind of rational, kind of really calculated search. Part of it was that, but part of it was kind of intuition, part of it was the family connection. We now sit here and realize where we've ended up. We're delighted with it.
We should also say that we are an unusual family. We have an 8-year-old daughter. And a large part of that analysis and discussion and finally the decision of Kelowna was also taking into account her needs and the kind of place that we wanted her to grow up.
There are the kind of cities arising now, and I think around the world, where the generation that's retiring doesn't want a traditional retirement. It's their next stage of life. They want an active retirement. They want to do some of the things they never had the time to do when they were working. And so they want to live in a place which has interesting stuff and interesting people. They're not looking for a sort of retirement community so much. But they are looking for a little less stress and a little more convenience and accessibility. And those cities, I think, that can do both of those things, that can provide a lot of interesting activities, but can do it in a really convenient, accessible way, I think people are going to find them very attractive. And certainly Kelowna has really exceeded our expectations on both counts, whether or not it's the opera company or the ballet company or the fabulous Asian market, let alone the wineries. Compared to, say, Washington, so much more convenient and accessible. You can get close to the best of both worlds in a single place. Another sort of connected aspect of that, people are pleasant and engaging and charming in Kelowna. I mean, noticeably so. That is different from what you find particularly in big American cities. And it contributes to a sense of relaxation. You don't have to fight your way through transactions and shopping.
My experience and Peter's are different. Our mindsets were different. Peter was very keen to move here. I was reluctant to move here because I considered myself an urbanite and loved the smells.
Big urbanite.
Big urbanite, exactly. Big urban. So
Vancouver wasn't quite big enough.
No, Vancouver was not big enough. No, living in a place like Madrid, which was huge, and then Washington, I like the buzz, the noise, the smell, all of that. I really loved, and so I was hesitant. It's been, I have to say, a complete surprise, and I'm not just saying this because I'm being interviewed about it. I was completely wrong in terms of how things turned out. The first feeling was one of just relaxation because we live up here in the Upper Mission. We have this beautiful view of the lake. It's such a tranquil setting. About a month into after having moved here, people were asking me, well, do I miss Washington? What do I miss about Washington? And frankly, I didn't miss it at all. But another important surprising part was the number of activities that one can engage in. I had been very career focused, so didn't really have any time for hobbies. In fact, when you asked me about hobbies, I had to think, first my thought was, I don't have any hobbies, I just work. But I've been able to take piano lessons, to take voice lessons, horseback riding, skating. The ability to move from this very hectic setting just to a place where so much accessible to us and wonderful resources. For example, on the music side, Kelowna has Wentworth Music, which is one of the best music schools in Canada, and in fact I think even in the world. The other thing that has been wonderful has been the ability to make just a range of friends. So my voice teacher is an accomplished opera singer. My skating teacher competed nationally. Molly's best friend's mother is a national ski champion. We have developed friendships with our contractor, the owner of Sopa Art Gallery, the head of the design school here at the Design and Technology School.
This has been a real surprise for me because you automatically think in the big city, greater range of people whom you can meet. Smaller city, much smaller range of people. But in fact, it's worked the other way. Because in the big city, the communities of people are big enough that they can be self-sustaining. You can live in your own bubble in a big city. And we live in Washington, we lived in a international development bubble. But here in Kelowna, the bubbles are not that big, and they're more interconnected. And our range of friends is actually becoming much greater in Kelowna than it ever was in Washington.
It really enriches your life to learn to meet people with very different backgrounds from yours, and to learn what their life experiences are.
You know, if I had a message for anybody thinking about Kelowna, we made the gamble that we could have based on our previous life. Based on living in Washington, we could still come to Kelowna and have a really interesting life. It's proved to be even more true than we had imagined. You can build a life here, regardless of your interests. Obviously, if you like the great outdoors, that's an easy one. But if you're into cultural and other things, there's still enough here.
Well, I guess my advice would be pre-newcomers.
Okay.
So before you make your decision, because I was reluctant to come, as I mentioned before. Yes. So for those of you that think, oh no, Kelowna is not the kind of place to live, I would say give it a shot, because I was really pleasantly surprised. Not just surprised, completely proven wrong, embarrassingly so. Give it a shot, spend some time here before discarding it as I would have done.
There's more here than we had imagined, and we are used to living in places which have a lot of stuff. But two other aspects, it's really a healthy place. And not only just in the lack of pollution and the food, but there's a culture here of older people exercising. In the late summer, you drive down the street, there's people on bicycles. It's also, I think, a very safe place. That's not an insignificant criteria for families with young children or people that have lived in cities with security issues as we did in Washington. And I would say that the final thing is, I think it's a city for the future. And I think as people in Canada tend to move west, and as that generation retires who wants an active lifestyle, and as Kelowna develops its resources like the wineries, you know, its issue is going to be how to manage the diversity and the growth. And for a family who wants to come to a city with not just for themselves, but for their children and for the, later generations, I think it's a good choice.
So that was the first part of my interview with Peter and Maria. If you want to hear their choices of some of the best establishments in Kelowna, please watch part 2. Their choices are fantastic and insightful, especially considering the exposure they have had to all the world has to offer. Clearly, Peter and Maria have lived exceptional lives, and they had their choice of anywhere in the world to live, but they picked Kelowna. Their interview confirmed what I already knew. Kelowna is amazing, and it's only going to get better. Okay, so moving on. I bet you're focused on the gorgeous view behind me. That's Lake Okanagan, and the city of Kelowna is off in the distance. Presently, I'm in the Upper Mission. When asked about the Upper Mission, the first thing that will probably pop up in people's minds are the views. They are outstanding. The Upper Mission is mostly a residential area interspersed with vineyards, wineries, orchards, beaches, and some great hiking trails. Could it get any better? The housing in this area ranges from townhomes to single family on small or large lots, larger acreages, and of course breathtaking lake frontage homes and estates. The average sales price for a home in the Upper Mission in 2016 was just over $790,000. If you're considering a move to Kelowna or you have any real estate questions, please give me a call. I'd love to help you. I'm going to close by showing you one of my favorite places in the Upper Mission, Bertram Creek Park. I'll let its beauty do all the talking. Thanks for watching.